Well, hey now, folks. John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome, folks, to my 5 live day Brits. That's the challenge with live. And especially when you're a communications expert, you mispronounce the name of your own event. The 5 day live is what I'm trying to say. Folks, welcome. I'm thrilled that you're here. And whether you're watching on Facebook Live, which is great. Hey, now, if you happen to be on Facebook Live, wonderful. When you are on, you get this opportunity to drop a note in the comments. I'll know that you're here. Just makes me happy, right? And that we can interact, which is the whole purpose of this round of communications. If you are watching on LinkedIn Live, absolutely outstanding. And if you are, same deal. You get the chance, drop a comment. I'll know you're here. Makes me feel better. We get to interact. So again, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, drop in the comments. We are also on YouTube Live, and that makes me really happy. I don't know, with the magic of tech, if I'm getting your comments on those live feeds. So right now, if you're on YouTube, enjoy and drop me a note afterwards. If you're watching on a replay, fantastic. I'm thrilled that you're here. Look, the whole point of this round, it's going to be 5 days. We're going to go Tuesday to Friday, and then we're going to do a recap this coming Monday, day 5, to tie things all together. To me, my whole purpose is to help you optimize your communications in a business setting, in a life setting. And with this communications, for me, it's the ability to be able to improve your results, drive more sales revenue, keep that seat in the boardroom, make your message relevant, impactful, and most importantly, heard and understood. What you're trying to say is what you actually say. And the proof of it is people understand it correctly, and you know that. So what do we get to do? I'm going to be dropping some tips, techniques in ways to get us all back in gear. And we're going to get rolling right to it. All right, folks? By the way, I really try not to make this over PowerPoint heavy, right? Just a few slides, because I just like the template and the format. By the way, I'm noticing with that photo, my mom has told me, God love you, Marie Ryan. My mom has told me that, there's a photo of you that I don't like because it makes you look bald. I had no idea what photo it is. I think I just realized it. And I love this photo otherwise, except for what looks like missing hair. So we're going to scoot past that if that's okay. Look, I'm going to bring up a situation and we're going to get right to it. All right. So situation room, problem solved. That's the whole deal. Any situation that I'm bringing you comes from two directions. Number one, I've lived it and dealt with it. That's number one. Number two, when we are communicating over these next several days, if you have a specific business communications, and that sounds overly heavy, a business situation that you want me to address, bring it. Either drop it in the notes or an email, and you'll have my email address shortly. But in the meantime, let me show you today's situation that we're going to play around with. All right. This is a personal, I'm saying favorite, and I say that laughingly. And I'm calling the situation this in our 5-day live coaching blitz. So here's the deal. You're shaking off cobwebs as you're feeling end of summer grogginess. Sound familiar? Meanwhile, here's the conflict. Everyone that you're seeing on social media, all your work, business pals, fellow entrepreneurs, corporate execs, they're all letting you know that it's time to move. We got to get moving here. It's September. It's, almost fourth quarter, but you're still longing for the beach. What happens? You know that it's time to get rolling. I mean, you feel it, right? The days are getting a little bit shorter. You feel like you have a little bit less time, and the sense can be overwhelming. All right. And I've lived this before, where you feel like, oh my God, Every life accomplishment that I said I would do, I got to now finish by the end of the year. Every business goal, whether I'm ahead of the curve or trying to catch up, and everything feels weird. This time of year, the day after Labor Day specifically, but it really starts to snowball. And God, if you're on the East Coast, hopefully we don't see snow, but it's the feeling starts to snowball. Has anyone felt that before? That sense of like almost like dread that you're not going to be able to keep up. I'm going to add one more layer to this that we're going to deal with today and give you some peace of mind. Not only are you feeling that dread, I don't know what I get to do. I've got so many shortfalls, and everyone else is flying out of the box, all in their best work clothes, and they're ready to go. But you can't even articulate what it is that you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, how you're going to accomplish this. Hey, folks, if anybody is on here live and you work with teams, drop a note in the comments, because that sense of inability to articulate urgency, it's one thing to look nervous and anxious and we got to get moving, but you got to be able to articulate it in a way that people are going to follow you. So whether it is your team, whether it is the stakeholders, whether it is your board, whether it is your boss, you have to be able to, number one, articulate properly what's going on. And then you've got to be able to solve. So rather than implode or simply start longing for, oh God, I wish it was Labor Day weekend. Don't we all? It was beautiful on the East Coast. Folks, if you're joining me from the East Coast, drop a note in the comments. We just had a gorgeous Labor Day weekend. And now we have to all be back in gear, and that gets weird, okay? So I said I would help solve that, and that's the intention, folks. Here's what I want to be able to do is give you the peace of mind of knowing that you're going to be able to do a couple of things and easily address a problem, communicate the solution, and then take action on the solution. By the way, I just dropped a massive hint in regards to where we're going to head with this. But point blank, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you those tips right now because, and not ground rules, but just what we'll do each of these 5 days, because everyone is busy and everyone is moving. These are going to be quick hits and tips, okay? So I'd rather just get to it. How do you solve that sense of overwhelm? I'm anxious, I'm lazy, I'm regretful, I'm overwhelmed. All right, number one, here's your solve. You're going to gather your thoughts. All of this is, we're going to keep this simple. You've heard the acronym KISS or KISS. Well, not like that, but then you get HR involved, and that's never good. But no offense to the HR people that are joining me today. But what I was going to say is, keep this simple. The worst thing that can happen is when you're so jammed up and there's so many rando shiny object things going on that you can't articulate. If you're speaking to stakeholders, bosses, your teams, and you sound distracted and confused, do you think anybody's following you? Do you think anyone's going to take that direction? Exactly. Right. My God. Thank you for that, Katie. No, they won't. So your responsibility, keep it simple and gather your thoughts. There's a couple of ways to do this. Number one, as you're gathering your thoughts, ask yourself this question. What is the most pressing need in your business? If you're an entrepreneur, well, you're going to ask yourself, what's the most pressing? What nags you the most? Don't spend an overly lengthy period of time on this, but you'll know it's the thing that keeps nagging you or makes you uncomfortable. Any examples, folks? Drop it in the comments. Well, for me, I came from sales, revenue generation, the executive management positions that I've been in so often tied to sales. Been a director of sales, national sales manager, local sales manager. I'm not telling you that to impress you. I'm simply letting you know that's typically the angle or the viewpoint of where I was coming from. So the questions that I was asked, the concerns that were shared with me, often tied to revenue. So in your mind, you could be thinking, okay, what is the revenue situation, crisis, problem, short term or long term, that I got to solve? And the chances are, because it probably interrupted part of your sitting on the beach staring at the water, right? It would just jump in. So know it. That's the. If you are unsure, ask someone, right? If you're an entrepreneur, sometimes the biggest problem you have is you're working in a vacuum. Now, you probably know what the problem is, but you're working in a vacuum. It's just you. So if you've got your own business like I do, and I run my own company, the biggest mistake that I can make is to just stay in the vacuum alone. So, buddy of mine, literally just reach out to me, business monster. Jay Duran and I have participated. Jay has had me on his podcast, the Culture Matters podcast, a lot. And I have been smart enough to have Jay Duran on my own podcast, Your Message Received. So we get to communicate a lot as business leaders and as colleagues and as friends. Jay just asked me the question. I'm not name checking, but literally 45 minutes before we went live. How do I impact him? Those sorts of questions, you can turn it on yourself. What is the most pressing need of your business? Or ask someone. You can ask someone, what do you do well? What you can also ask is, what areas would you like to see me tackle or improve? But ask someone who matters if you're an entrepreneur. Don't go it alone. If you work in a corporation, I spent over 25 years being a part of several corporations, and I say that with complete gratitude, not trying to impress anybody, but I did. So I know the layers. I have managed up, I have managed down, I have managed sideways, and we will talk all about this coming week of how it can impact you and how you can optimize that. But the thing is this, you can ask someone. Don't worry about that it makes you feel insecure or lost, or you need to know all the answers. Want to communicate a question to a leader? Your leader, for instance. Let me give you an example from the revenue side. You could simply, first off, do your homework. Be aware of the numbers if it's a revenue-based position. So know the numbers. Then go in and ask your boss, the bosses, the executive leadership team, your stakeholders. Look, here's the situation from a top-line view. I see this as our number one shortfall right now, or our number one goal that I need to address. Would you agree? Is there anything I am missing? Right? Way better question than I don't know where I'm going, and please tell me what to do. Do the homework, take one step backward. Okay. And then when you do, it allows you to propel forward and ask a better question. Okay. Now, how do you get to this place where you can think for a moment and get it together? Often when you have these sorts of situations, you're in a little bit of a panic situation, right? As I said, distraction is a panic situation. Your mind being all cluttered. Oh my God, I'm just back from vacation, long weekend, my summer at wherever, if you're fortunate enough. I don't mean to sound all privileged, but there's a sense of you got to be careful. So you got to be able to move quickly, but you got to be able to move accurately. So you may not get several days to get yourself corrected or righted. You may need to know these answers faster. And so here's a suggestion. I talk about breathing to speak. So everything that I roll with, I work with several modules. One of them has to be mindset. It's the most important of all of them. And I talk about things like a Navy SEAL's breathing technique. If you are lucky to be able to have the clarity to ask yourself important questions, great. But if you are not, well, there are other ways to go. Oh, baby. Zach Carlin from the Summit Chasers Network. I am already honored. My buddy and I have collaborated. Zach, I have learned a ton and keep learning a ton from Zach, and so should you. Several live, 3 different live sessions per week. You will find Zach, his co-founder, Audrina, and the Summit Chasers Network team. Definitely check them out. Yeah, it is key. You've got to gather yourself. And again, you may not have the luxury of a ton of time. So let's keep it simple, right? So I share this in pressure situations, whether you're speaking to an audience, but sometimes you just need to get it together, right? So it's Tuesday, 12:20 almost, Labor Day Tuesday, and people are just clamoring at you. I'll make the suggestion. What can you do? Try this breathing technique. Do you have 16 seconds? I'll bet you do. So if you have 16 seconds, I'll help you. You ready? I'll show you how. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Big exhale for 4 seconds. Let it all go from the belly, all right? And then hold for 4 more seconds. Boom. You're done. The Navy SEALs uses that breathing technique to get out of life and death panic situations. Okay? So, your revenue goals may not be life and death situations. And I mean it with the Navy SEALs thing. I had no idea. My therapist colleague, Joseph Dowling, taught me this. And critical for me to learn because it immediately snaps you out of that sort of mind funk where you can't go anywhere, right? So if you have the luxury of time, so you've got a team of stakeholders. I'll bet you have to be impressed by me that I actually could hold my breath and not pass out. I have backup ventilators. But anyway, I love it, buddy. So for me, what happens now? You got a little bit of clarity. So meaning that if you got to come up with some fast answers, then move more quickly. What does that do? It frees your mind for a little bit. And then what do? I'll show you. We're going to take massive action. Let me give you a situation. I've shared this before. In fact, I'm pretty certain I shared this on a live situation that I did with Zach Carlin, where I talked about the following, where it was right before Labor Day, and my entire sales staff had either quit, resigned, or were fired. The entire team. So I had a sales staff of nobody. I worked for an independent television station at the time. My general manager, she was amazing with me. But honestly, imagine if you're her. If you are her. And we are a standalone independent television station in Philadelphia, scrapping for every single dollar and often needing to go against the biggest of the big behemoth networks. So everything was a fight. And you felt like you're always climbing uphill. And then my whole sales team, one gets bored, one gets fired, and I'm in charge. So I don't want to act like, you know what I mean? I had nothing to do with it. But I was in shock, and I have nobody. And so Labor Day weekend is approaching. I'm already going through that sense of what they used to call Sunday night syndrome. And if you're around and you know what I'm talking about, drop me a note in the comments, meaning you literally compromise that valued time away because you're projecting problems that you anticipate coming. So I'm already a basket case. Here's what I did. I understood the problem. You cannot have no salespeople in a sales organization, right? Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But I'm like, okay. Now, the keys for you. You don't need to know all problems. You don't need to solve every situation. You just have to articulate, know, and communicate what is the most pressing. When I talk about asking someone, that's why you're looking for confirmation or validation if you are inside of an organization. And it always helps when you do your own homework to repeat. And so taking that step backwards, do your homework, look at your numbers, look at the situation, go through, because you'll ask a question that always begins, here's the problem as I see it, and here's what I'd like to do about it. No, I'll say that better. Here's the problem. And I'm going to ask you guys in a moment, did you catch what that problem was? And I did it intentionally. Here's what the problem is. Here's what I intend to do about it starting Tuesday morning. Did you notice a difference in the communication of it? Part 3. Am I seeing it correctly? Am I missing anything? Would you think, or would you prefer I head in a different direction, or does this work for you? When you're speaking to shareholders, stakeholders, your executive board, your bosses, your colleagues, people need to know that you understand it enough to articulate it, and that you are already ahead of the curve. Why take massive action if you are taking the wrong action or if you're solving the wrong problem? So, the easiest way to confirm the situation is to articulate it to someone based upon something, metrics, numbers, historical data, conversations that you've had with your leadership team or your colleagues, something. Problems are most often never sudden. All of a sudden, the sales team didn't all resign in mass. Specific situations caused all of that to occur. No need to relive that, but it actually happened. I had 6 salespeople, then I had 0. Here's what I did. I articulated the problem. Look, my boss's name she passed away, that's why I say was. God rest her soul. She was amazing to me. Dorothy Brunson, and a legendary figure in media. And I literally said to her, and we spoke formally, intentionally. Hey, Ms. Brunson, here's the situation. I obviously know that this is a problem, and I know that you know that this is a problem. Here's what I intend to do. On Tuesday morning, meaning Labor Day Tuesday, I had 12 interviews scheduled on the half hour. I said, you're going to see a bunch of people coming in the door. I've got 12 interviews confirmed. Here's the resumes that I chose. I'm interviewing these individuals. These are the steps I'm going to take to solve this problem. And when we hire from this group, I already have a training program set up, and I'll let you see where I'm headed. The question, am I seeing it correctly? Is there anything I'm missing in the communication? Can you imagine when you're speaking to leaders and you demonstrate that you're in front of something, that you've solved a problem, and even better, you can articulate it properly. You know what the worst thing that could happen when you say that? Talk to me. What would you think? I'll tell you. They give you a different problem. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's what you want. That's exactly what you want. But if you do not articulate in a professional leadership fashion that demonstrates that you're on top of the situation, and folks, simple reminder, when I'm talking about optimizing communications, I'm not talking about sounding like an announcer or sounding pretty or professional or, oh, they've got a nice voice. Don't matter. Don't matter. This is all about authenticity. We're working with your best, most authentic voice. So nobody cares how pretty you sound if you can't figure out what a problem is and if you can't articulate it, right? If you sound like you're guessing or flailing, nobody wants to hear it. Let me give you an opposite example. Sales are down. I think that's a problem, right? Well, you sound awful. And nobody cares that you sound great or bad or whatever. You know what they're looking for? Authentic, confident problem solver. And accent on authentic. Don't send leadership or your sales organization or your executive team in a direction that is wrong unnecessarily. So confidence is different than arrogance, and that's what we're looking to solve today. So again, if you're at a loss in regards to what to do, where to go, how to solve a situation, trying to shake off the cobwebs, let me help you, right? You don't need to solve all the world's problems. You just need to you need to identify, solve, and take action on. Again, identify, solve, take action on the most pressing situation that you can get your arms around. The most pressing situation that matters to your client, your stakeholders, your audience. How do you know? Articulate it. That's how you're optimizing your communications. Okay. It's how you articulate situations. Again, you're not trying to sound like a professor. You're trying to sound like someone who is on top of a problem, provides options based upon data, and your client, your leadership team, your colleagues, your sales organization can feel better about following your directive or can articulate legitimate concerns that you need to know. As that goes, what happens? You're now, and especially the massive action part, that, with that 12 interviews, that what occurred, we hired 4 salespeople. And that became the foundation of our future sales team. And so, honest to God, it solved the problem. Every time that day that my president and general manager walked past my office when I was interviewing, it was all glass. It was like a fishbowl, right? But every time she walked past, she nodded. It made her feel better. She knew something positive was going on. We hired salespeople and we rolled on. Buddy, thank you for the kind words. And you're right. It's the baseline for everything. And again, it's what you are saying. Have your data correct. Do your homework. Help somebody out. Take a step forward and demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. Why? Because it'll sound like you do. And rather than worrying about how pretty you sound or articulate, you sound convincing because you are convincing. And somebody can easily help you at this point. No, that's not the problem. I think we should. But talk to me. Now you've got communication that you can work with. So, folks, this is what I'm saying today. You want to get the cobwebs out. You want to get the remainder of sand out of your favorite shoes. Here's how. Find a situation where you can impact. that's pressing and matters. Articulate it to yourself. Articulate it to someone who matters. If you find that you can't articulate it or get your arms around it, take the step backwards, do a little bit of homework, or ask someone. But do the homework first before you just ask, I don't know what to do. Ain't helping anybody. Do your homework. Come back with a legitimate question that you see as a problem. Allow for feedback, allow for the correction, and then move forward. Take the massive action, which again blows you out of the I'm lazy, I'm sad, I'm worried, whatever the case may be. So, what does that do? It gets you moving in the right direction. Maybe you didn't solve the biggest problem. Maybe you didn't get the best action set, but you did something, right? You did something. Now, speaking of doing something, any questions on that? That's what I want to touch on today. Remember, folks, we're coming back for 4 more consecutive days. We're going to keep hitting these situations. The fun part of these is when you watch them on the replay, which you are more than welcome to do. And folks, if you're, like I said, if you're watching on the replay for the first time, great. You do not have to watch them sequentially, but I highly recommend that you go back to all 5 because, again, we're taking what I feel like are timely situations. I encourage feedback. And by the way, I put together this handy dandy PDF of a communications checklist, helping out in terms of meetings, helping out in terms of team communications, why communications matters. If you want this handy dandy checklist, and you should, because I used a bunch of cool colors, and I love the factoids on it as well too, if I do say so myself. What can you do? You could drop me a line. God, does that make me sound old? You could send me an email, jd@duffinmedia.com. And when you send me that email, simply say tips, okay? And if you don't say it exactly right, this is not a test. But simply say tips. I will send you that PDF ASAP just to get us all in gear so we move forward. So, folks, here's my hope that today you understand that every problem is solvable, including communications problems, including getting back in gear when you feel a little bit lost. The action always works, but don't take blind, dumb action. Okay? Make certain that you're solving a problem that actually matters to somebody. Prove it by articulating it, and then take the action and get the feedback. Okay? So that's what I got today, everybody, right? We are coming back tomorrow at 12 noon. Very similar, but we're going to handle a different situation. And again, you got my email address, jd@duffinmedia.com. It's right there. You want that stat sheet? Just yell tips, and it's coming your way. That PDF. Any suggestions as to real topics that we can cover? I'd love it. Let's do it. But I thank you today, folks, for staying with me, for participating. Anywhere you happen to be, I am delighted. But know that we can communicate, we can articulate, communicate, and solve the problems that need to be solved so we can all project forward and have that killer last 4 months of the year. I'm right here when you need me. So anyway, folks, John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Thanks for showing up for me today, and we will definitely talk soon. See you later. Bye.